I'm Ryan Chao, President of Rails to Trails Conservancy, and welcome to day 2 of the TrailNation Summit. Everyone excited? So as you saw, we didn't just give you an agenda, we gave you a workbook. We gave you work. And we're going to start that work today. We're going to explore some really important issues, challenges, and opportunities together. We're also going to see some of the great trails of this amazing city and this amazing region through our mobile workshops. So I'm really excited to kick us off with none other than the mayor of this great city, Justin Bibb, for a welcome. Mayor.
Well, as your CEO told me backstage, welcome to the trail mecca of the USA. This issue of having best-in-class trails and best-in-class access to bike infrastructure and mobility is personal for me. I'm a working-class kid, born and raised in the southeast side of Cleveland, Ohio. And my passport to the world was my first bike I got when I was in first grade. I remember my mom gave me $50 to go to Big Hump's bike shop on East 131st Street, where I grew up. And we didn't have connected bike lanes in my block in the 1990s. We didn't have a lot of great trails, but we did have good parks. And I got in a little trouble for taking my bike all the way to the mall in Warrensville Heights. But it opened up my whole world to what was possible because of that bike. Fast forward nearly 15 years later, when I was running for mayor, I did my first ever slow roll. And it was eye-opening for me because I had been born and raised in Cleveland. I'd lived here for nearly 2 decades and was never exposed to the amazing trails we had because I didn't have that access as a working-class black kid in the east side of the city. But that access was real on the west side. And so what I'm excited about now in my role as mayor is we are trying to meet the moment, making sure we center bike access, center equity in everything we do in terms of how we make Cleveland one of the best damn 15-minute cities in the world. And so the work you do matters. It's not just about the technical aspects of building best-in-class trails. It's about hope, it's about opportunity, and it's about making sure everybody in our cities, whether you're in a blue state or a red state or a democratic city or a rural town, this is about making sure everyone has access. So enjoy the conference, spend a whole lot of money while you're here, and spread the gospel about the great things we have going on in Cleveland, Ohio. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mayor Bibb. Really appreciate that. And I think what's really interesting is we heard last night Peter Harnick, our co-founder, in the documentary, he talked about when he was a kid, there was nowhere safe to walk and bike, and that it was only really kids that rode bikes. Mayor Bibb just told his own story of the lack of access to connectivity. I had the same thing, and I think a lot of this conference is about tremendous progress, but progress made in a short time in the last decade of connecting trails together, in part so that all of us can give the next generation the kind of opportunity for safe walking and biking that maybe we didn't have when we were kids. I love that walk-on music. That makes me feel kind of special. That's fancy. So who attended the dinner and movie last night from Rails to Trails? Yeah, it was great fun, and I'm glad you could join. Really, there we started to frame out some of the themes that we're going to explore all throughout this gathering. I'm just here to kind of finish setting the table a bit, and then we will dive into the work. So as I said last night, the last time we had a TrailNation Summit was 2018 in Milwaukee. And that was a very different gathering. It was kind of a point of emergence of trail networks. At that time, there were dozens of places exploring how to unite their trails that they built into systems. Some plans were being made, some were just concepts, really, at that time. For us, we had started investing in our TrailNation model projects across the country. We had success, we made plenty of mistakes along the way, but we wanted to, in some ways, kind of be early to help support others along their journey. All that has led now to a country that really has hundreds of trail networks nationwide and a collaborative we call the TrailNation Collaborative that now totals over 10,000 people across the US, many of whom are here today. And those consist of people from across our great sector, advocates, planners, elected officials, community leaders, and more, all working to try to make it safer to walk, bike, and be active outdoors. That's real tangible progress in less than 10 years, and real tangible impact for people and places. And that's why we're so excited to unpack the opportunities that are ahead for us now as we look to the next decade. So you heard a lot of this in the documentary last night, that for now almost 40 years, Rails to Trails Conservancy has worked alongside all of you to create safe, protected infrastructure for people to be active outdoors. And much of that started initially as recreation, really segments of trails where people could get out, be active outdoors in a way that's more accessible, more equally accessed by more people of different ages and abilities than anything that they had had before. Fast forward now, there are 42,000 miles of multi-use trails in America. And if you think about that, that's almost as many total miles as the number of miles in the US interstate highway system. 42,000 in a pretty short period of time. And so what's really exciting about the path ahead is taking all these recreational amenities and connecting them into systems, closing gaps in ways that can really magnify their impact. What does that mean? That means that when trails are connected, they're connectors between communities. They create opportunities for both active recreation and transportation for people who want to find ways to walk, bike, and be active for any purpose. They make communities safer. They make communities more protected. Currently, every day, up to 20 pedestrians die in some kind of traffic-related fatality. What we do is to create ways for them to be fully separated from traffic. And these trails, they create destinations in communities, not only for places where you might want to visit, places you actually might want to live, places we're welcoming others. And so what we're doing is really building a future where everyone can improve their economic opportunity, mobility, quality of life through trails. This transformation of our landscape has been possible through the will of people, through advocates, local community leaders, people who really want to make a difference in their own backyard. And I think what's really interesting and timely for this gathering, next year will be the 250th birthday of our country, the sesquicentennial. It will be the 40th anniversary of our organization, the Rails to Trails Conservancy, and it will mean a really pivotal moment, 2026, for federal advocacy and both opportunity and challenge ahead. And I think what's really exciting on the eve of that is to gather again since 2018. We'll have over 400 people here. We'll have 40 states represented. That's 80% of the country here together. And I think really affirming that trails are essential infrastructure which needs to be invested in significant ways. So we all know that trails inspire joy, they inspire self-exploration, they inspire self-care. But what does the data tell us beyond our own walls? And so this is information from a 2023 survey that we conducted nationally, and it really affirmed the value of what people think about trails. One, that 90% of people say it's important to have safe access to the outdoor through trails. 88% say that tax dollars should be spent on developing and maintaining trails. And 61% of people who are on trails want to do it more. They want to spend more time active outdoors. So that's the reason people find it meaningful. Trails are important because they're personally valuable. But what is the why? Why have we invested in trails in such a significant way in recent years? And it's really about return on investment, many co-benefits. So every year, trails generate over $34 billion in economic activity for this country. That's exciting, but when we talk about connectivity, taking these trails and actually connecting them to networks, we did some analysis of the maximum benefit, and you'll see it's quite profound, that if we improve connectivity, that economic benefit can go up to as much as $138 billion. If you pan out a little bit on that, that's nearly 7 times greater annually than the amount that this country has invested in federal grants for trails over the last 3 decades. Think about that, 7 times in 1 year what we've invested in 30 years. Benefits extend in many other ways, things, of course, everyone here all knows, but if you calculate the value of shifting short car trips to walking and biking and reducing congestion, the current benefit is $3.3 billion annually. If we can increase connectivity, that goes up to as much as $22 billion. And finally, there are significant health cost savings from trails and active transportation in terms of the increased physical activity that it encourages and generates. That's currently $20 billion. It could grow to nearly $92 billion if we increase connectivity. So I mentioned that before we started TrailNation, the last time we gathered, there were relatively few trail networks in development. What's really exciting is how quickly that's changed, and there's so many opportunities for connectivity. The pins in this map represent 150 multi-use trail networks that are in some form of development in America. That's our own data, that's the groups we work with and surveying, and these extend to every geography, urban, rural, every state is covered, DC, Puerto Rico. If you go outside this room, there's a map, a little more analog map, you might say. And we're inviting folks to put pins in terms of the trail networks you're involved in. Oh. This one always wants to move. Well, the map's outside and it's more interesting in person. But please do, put pins where you are involved in a trail network, where you know of a trail network. And let's fill in that map even further. We want to hear your stories. It's just so fun to see that come together. I don't think Peter Harnick's here today, but all right. But Peter would be thrilled if he saw people doing exactly what he did decades before in terms of mapping out trails. Thank you. So I talked a little bit about the kind of the big ROI, but I think it's important to recognize that trails are the solutions to many of the most pressing challenges we face, not just kind of economic investment, but you think about big societal issues. That's what I think is so rewarding. Trails, walking, biking do so much for communities. And the reason when you think about it is when you connect trails, the use goes up by as much as 80%, that value really gets magnified. So trail networks are the backbone, local regional systems that connect people to destinations without the need for a car. They provide economic effects, not just in trailside businesses, but in communities that are more livable, where people would want to relocate. Trails are linear green spaces. In many cases, the really kind of one preserved form of public land, and they allow people to get outside with minimal impact on the planet. They encourage people of all ages to be active outside. And in many places, and this is important, that trails represent both the past and the future, and really the significance of a place and where it's been, where it's going. And so for many trails, and you certainly heard this in the documentary last night, they're a source of community identity and pride for so many people. So let's talk a little more real time now. And it's been very exciting to see all that we've accomplished together and all that's in front of us. But I think we must also address the realities and complexities of the current moment. And so some of this is stuff we just put in a few days ago just to make sure we're really talking about the most relevant piece. But the transformation of this landscape I've described, it's been possible because of public investment, vital public investment at local, state, and federal levels. And we've seen over this decade really a once-in-a-generation growth of our movement. We've seen huge booms in trail use. an overnight change in the attitudes and behaviors around what people think about the value of safe outdoor activity and their actual participation in it, and a more than tripling of federal funding for trails. Our work has never been more relevant, it's never been more politically supported, it's never been more popular. And what's been really exciting to see is that the unprecedented federal funding has made bold visions that people have reality. They've really been able to advance their own trail networks and move their visions farther. Right now, federal funding is under threat, and that's something we will need to address and really take the time together to fully maximize our opportunities here. There are actions out of Congress, out of the US Department of Transportation, that raise major red flags as we enter into a critical advocacy period. There have been grants that have been frozen for different reasons. There are grants that are moving forward. In many ways, the outlook is mixed, though perhaps a little bit more encouraging than maybe some other sectors. But I think it's important to recognize that 2026, not only our nation's birthday, not only our anniversary, it's a year that the next surface transportation bill will be written by Congress. And that's a time when we need to ensure that valuable federal funding is not only preserved, it's increased for this work. At the same time, there's a more real current threat, and there's a bill, and frankly a dangerous bill, that has been introduced in the House of Representatives National Resources Committee that poses a threat to rail banking, what you heard about last night many of you work with. There's an anti-rail banking bill that could thwart the viability of rail banking, threaten future and existing trails. It's something we're gonna have to, as things advance, really unite it as a movement. So what do we do about it? And this did say, we've had a mantra this year in terms of just entering this year and continuing momentum, and it's pragmatic optimism. That's how we've been approaching advocacy. Say it with me all, pragmatic optimism. Pragmatic optimism. It still holds, but I would say we're not only trying to be pragmatic about what's possible, we're also really focused on the future. And so there are things that we can leverage, and that's the vast bipartisan political support for trails, walking and biking. It's the momentum of trail users. It's a pro-culture shift in terms of the value of trails that's taken hold all across the country. It's the ROI that I talked about that trails deliver for communities, and it's the value and impact of this work in all places, urban, rural, red and blue. Our issue really does extend beyond politics. So the challenge and the opportunity here is we learn and connect on many things at the summit. And what I'd encourage you all is as you move through these sessions, you build new relationships, you brainstorm on ways to implement what you learn here back home. It's helping to spread the message that trails are essential. And as you carry the insights and stories and evidence that you gather here, to focus on how can we all collectively make the strongest case that trails aren't just nice to have. What we really need right now is consistency and unity of voice. We need to be uplifting trail networks every chance we get. So that's in conversations with friends and family. That's meeting with local, state, and federal leaders. That's on the press. That's on the internet. Everywhere we can, we need to be elevating that trails are essential, non-political investment that communities need. What we talk about is we need persistence to make this pervasive. Persistence will meet the challenges ahead. So as I close here, I want to share a quote that we really love, and it's from author Barbara Kingsolver. And she wrote this in Southern Living. This is about the effect of Hurricane Helene on Appalachia, her home region, but also on the Virginia Creeper Trail in her home area. And I think it really addresses well the cultural relevance and community significance of trails. She writes that we don't just love trails, we need them. We also need visitors and faith in our recovery. The Virginia Creeper Trail attracts more than 200,000 hikers and bikers a year with vacation money to spend in Abington lodges and businesses. We're not giving up, so please don't give up on us. So in an area that's really been devastated in so many ways, what's the beacon of hope? What's the thing to build around? It's the trail. It's the Virginia Creeper Trail there. So finally, I would just note that when any of us take a trail, we can see how neighborhoods along that route benefit. We can see it immediately. But what is often less clear, but you can almost use your imagination, is when you visit a trail system that covers an entire region, it benefits all communities throughout the areas. It's fundamental in unlocking the full potential of this infrastructure beyond even what your own eyes can see. When trails and trail networks are at the heart of communities, communities thrive. So that's what's happening all across the country. That's what's been happening for the last 8 years since we met before. And it's what we'll be talking about all throughout this gathering we hope you bring home at the TrailNation Summit. So thank you all so much for joining. Thank you for all that you do for trails. We truly appreciate it.